Gul Dukat is very proud of the monument his people are erecting in his honor at the gateway to the Imperial Plaza. General Martok does his best Duke Evers impression, and Julian Bashir says his tool is either a self-sealing stem bolt or a reverse ratcheting router. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the seventh rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello, hello.
Sorry about that. That was a very long intro I had to throw out there. My name is Ryan T. Husk, and today we're doing a review of Deep Space Nine, Season 5, Episode 15 by Inferno's Light, written again by Ira Steven Behr and Robert Hewitt Wolf, directed by the man that doesn't want to hear Jake and Nog's names ever again, Mr. Les Landau. February 17th, 1997. How are you today, Cirroc?
Doing good. I was expecting you to word the Gul Dukat thing a little bit differently. I was expecting you to say Gul Dukat has an erection in progress.
Yeah. I actually had to, I prepared myself to not slip up there.
Okay. All right. So you're on your best behavior. Congratulations.
Yeah, at least to start the show, right?
There was a lot of open room there, so I can hear the temptation in your voice. But no, I'm doing good, man. This is it. The second part. This is what they left us on that cliffhanger from the first episode.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of, it's funny because usually when you watch an episode and it says previously on, and then they show you whatever happened previously. Yeah. Usually you're like, yeah, all right, go on, get on with it. I already saw this, but in this moment, I was actually watching the previously on DS9 as much as I was watching. You know what I mean? It was intriguing for me. I was like, oh, let me catch up. And I remember that. I remember that scene. And I also wanted to see which clips they used to refresh our memory, right?
Dude, that's so funny that you mentioned that, because I put all that in my notes. Like, first thing in my notes was how exactly did I word it? It's interesting to see how they cut the last time on Star Trek segment together. And I thought the same thing as you, where normally when they say previously on Star Trek, I just skip ahead about a minute and a half, and,
right.
Just skip. I'm like, I know what but this time I was like, it was such a good episode. I actually want to relive it for a second. And I'm also curious as to what they're going to use to piece it together. So that's so funny that you mentioned that. You kind of stole my thunder, but that just shows that these guys are doing something right, that everybody that's watching it is like, no, I'm not skipping ahead. I want to know what's going on.
Yeah. I was like, I was watching the previously. I was excited because I really wanted to know which clips they would use to represent the episode, right? What were the things that they wanted us to highlight on? Because obviously they're going to carry those themes on into this new episode. But they used a couple of clips that I kind of half forgot a little bit. I didn't write in my notes some of those clips, or maybe didn't talk about it as much. There was one with the Dukat, for example. I was like, oh, that's the Dukat scene they liked.
Yeah. Right? Well, when he says, I don't have time to explain right now. And I'm like, I kind of missed that the first time. But when they said that, when he said it this time, I was like, oh, I see. That is important.
Yes, exactly. So that was my first kind of takeaway from just like right away, right from the beginning of this watch, getting a rewatch of the last episode, getting back familiar with what was so great about it, getting my palate wet for what was about to come too.
Yeah.
And it was just like, it was everything I was looking for. So once again, one of the things also that I'm excited about, and I think that we didn't really touch on too much, is the fact that we have so many this big entourage, right? This huge ensemble of characters that we've become supremely familiar with.
Yes.
And that's another element that I find myself kind of loving so much, because I know who Gowron is. I know who Martok is. I know what Dukat's thinking. And all of these characters, these supplemental characters that make Deep Space Nine so great, are all kicking in gear at the same time, and it's kind of exciting for me.
There's a lot to talk about in this episode. Real quick, I do want to give a shout out. We are always happy to give a shout out to our good friends, including today, Mr. TJ Jackson-Bey, associate producer and super fan of the show and of other Star Trek series, I should say, Star Trek series, not other. And especially to his llama, Jeffrey, of course, his floating balloon llama. And it actually came up in our donor group, our Patreon group that's for patrons only. And our good friend, Mr. Scott Jensen, shout out to him, also made a little Photoshop work I'm going to show you guys real quick this Photoshop work when he mentioned TJ's Gorn, because, TJ dressed up as a Gorn before. So this from the scene from the animated series, and Scott Jensen added a llama to the Gorn. So TJ is basically the official party Gorn with his llama nowadays.
He's in the episode. It's been digitally remastered. That's good.
And look how chill he's happy. He's having his drink. He's got his llama. He's blocking everybody's view behind him.
She's upset in the background. She's like, "Would you move that damn llama? I can't see."
Save the llama for your mama, buddy. And then one last, I guess this was also Scott Jensen. This is new to me. I missed this one till just now, but he did another Photoshop. The Gorn later on in his commercial with William Shatner. But he still has that right there. The good old llama. Anyway, so shout out to our friends there.
All right. Scott Jensen put that together?
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Good job. Good job. TJ, we see you, man. You and your llama. Can't miss him.
So back to the show. Sorry about that, everybody, but that was funny. That provided hours of laughter. I just kept looking at it over and over again.
It's amazing. It's great.
Anyway, so back to this episode. I don't know really where you want to start, but there was a lot to cover here, and it was all good stuff.
I think there's pretty much anywhere you can start. The big thing for me was like the opening, right away in the opening scene, when you see Ducat's ship joining or following behind the Jemadar, and you're like, what kind of suicide mission is this guy on, right? He's gonna try to fight a whole squadron of Jemadar warships. Like, there's no chance. And then you see him kind of make this big turn, and the ice in his veins starts running at full potential.
Right.
And he starts giving Kira the business. Like, he's basically like, honeymoon's over. I'm done flirting with you. And I gave Zial a chance. Not for now. I gave Zial a chance. And you know what? I'm going to go with the dark side. I'm going to join forces with the dark side.
Yeah, when Kira mentioned, what about Zial? His voice lowered. He goes, she made her choice. Woo! But you're right. Like, every single time we think, oh, Ducat's got something endearing about him, he turns around and goes, or do I?
Or do I?
But
there's moments when he has flashes where you're like, oh, this guy, he's not so bad. He has potential. Just like he's one or two conversations away from, being a nice guy. But no, he's so cynical. He's so self-motivated, and he's willing to sell anybody or anything out for his own kind of stature, elevation, promotion, whatever you want to call it, for his legacy. And it was crazy. It was cold. I was like, what the F? Ducat Cardassians have joined the Dominion. I was like, wow, this is big. This is big.
Huge. And this was another one of those times where I was watching it and thinking of you when the Romulans appeared at the end there. I was thinking, oh my God, right now Cirroc is going, what is going on? This is crazy.
Yeah, I was actually, the whole time I was saying this is going to be the biggest battle scene in the history of anything, right? I was like, as they kept upping the stakes, and it's like, oh, now the Klingons are in, and now the Romulans are here, and the Federation's sending back up, and all the runabouts are being deployed, and I was like, oh God, it's about to go down, right? This is like World War or Intergalactic War One or whatever you want to call it.
Alpha Quadrant War One, yeah.
Yeah, it was like a big deal. And I love the scene between Dukat, because Kira, when she gets betrayed by Dukat, she goes full pissed off mode, right? Lock, phasers, open, fire. She didn't have to run it by. I'm not gonna run it by Sisko. I'm not gonna, double check. Is this the move we should be doing? As soon as he said that, she was like, blow his ship up, and kill him.
She's out for blood. That's it. She wants to kill him.
Yeah, she wants to kill.
Yeah, and what he said, Dukat, he said, goodbye, Major. Yeah. You and I on the same side. It never quite seemed right, did it? And he's just kind of like, well, come on. A scorpion, that it's like the scorpion story, the scorpion's going to do what a scorpion does. But yeah, you also mentioned the runabouts, and I did want to talk about that for a second. I thought it was cool, and it showed the desperation of the situation that they deployed the runabouts for the battle. Like, these are basically shuttlecraft. These are just little transport vehicles, but they're like, hey man, if that's all we got, you grab two people and you go in a runabout. And so they had the Defiant, they had the Klingon ship, and they had 3 runabouts. And they're like, all right, let's do it. And if they had a vacuum cleaner with a laser on it, they'd throw that out there too, man.
Yeah, it's but it makes me think about, because I don't know how much detail they've gotten into what kind of weaponry or artillery does the station itself have.
Well, a decent amount.
I'm curious about that.
Yeah, because they beefed up when they thought they were going to have a Dominion war, a Klingon war. Right. Remember, they definitely beefed themselves up for the Klingon war. So they're much better prepared, much better armed than they were previously. So the station itself can fire photons and everything. The station itself, I mean, it has its own little capsules that come out and start shooting. Quite a bit now, as you may see in a future episode.
Okay, because that was one of my concerns. I'm like, there's a lot of people stationed there. They should have more than just the Defiant protecting it, right? I was thinking they should have a small little fleet of ships kind of floating around protecting it, right? At least doing patrol of the area, making sure, kind of, we recently talked about how it's a lot like the Navy, right? And, you're thinking, okay, well, like a naval ship would have a bunch of airplanes on it and a bunch of helicopters, right? Not just one.
Right. Well, this is like
turrets.
Right. So this is kind of like a military base, in that there are built-in, turrets and torpedoes and things like that, and that is largely due to the threat of the Klingon War. Is they had to, because you're right. I think what they say, 5,000 or 6,000 people on that space station. They can't just have a ship, protecting it. Yeah. One ship. It's a tough little ship, but that space station needs to be able to defend itself, especially when the Defiant's gone.
And especially considering the fact that it's sitting right at the edge of the wormhole. So anybody coming out of that wormhole, however many ships it is, that's the number you're facing right away.
Deep Space Nine is target number 1 to anybody going through that wormhole.
So I'm just like, well, I hope it's capable of defending itself. I thought Ducat had some really great moments in this episode. The one scene where he has a conversation with Sisko, and he says, when I said everything Cardassian is going to be reclaimed, that includes Deep Space Nine, brother.
Yeah. It's getting hairy, man.
Yeah. When he says that, I was like, "Oh shit! You're really starting them. Those are them fighting words."
Mm-hmm. Very much
fighting
so.
Words. Yeah. And Cisco's like, "You want it? Come and get it."
Yeah, there's some heat there. There is some heat between those two, and it's cool because it's like Star Trek's so good at making the big scale conflict and then the more small scale conflict. The big scale is, oh my God, all of humanity and all the Klingons and everything in the Out Quadrant is going to be destroyed by the Dominion. But what's even more relevant to the viewer is, oh shoot, these guys are coming for Deep Space Nine. That just makes it hit close to home to us. And that's, and that's more so than just a military target or a strategic target. It's also personal for Ducat. He's like, I want my baby back. Like that, there's a pride thing there. That's all ego.
Yeah, it's a lot of ego involved with that. And he's just a good adversary because he's just, he's really good at these scenes where he's like, I'm not taking anything from you and you're going to bow down to my will. He's basically a really good evil person. But yeah, I thought there were so many moments. One of the things that I said, I love how the audience is in on some things, but not really.
Yeah, like Bashir.
Right? Mm-hmm. So we're in on the Bashir. We're in on some of the, like, we know some things, but we don't. And I liked how that is, because every time the Bashir scenes would come up, I would say to myself, that fake ass Bashir.
Yeah, I was calling him Faker Bashir too.
Yeah, I love like him and his smooth face, the ruffled face, the guy with the beard, the 5 o'clock shadow. That's the real Bashir, right?
Yeah.
So there were moments there where I was thinking, it's great how the audience knows, but the cast doesn't know. Then there was, of course, that scene with O'Brien and Bashir, and with the darts, right? And I thought O'Brien was gonna just figure it out. I was like, oh, he's gonna figure this out. He's gonna be like, what do you mean darts? Like, this is a life or death moment, and you're talking about darts. I thought he was gonna say, hey, let's do a blood test on you. And it's so great that the changeling is the guy that's actually administering all the blood tests, right? So it's
right.
Like,
that's perfect.
It's perfect. This is perfectly written.
There was a line with when Bashir and O'Brien were talking, and I'm trying to find it. It's when maybe I didn't take a note of it, but it was when Bashir and O'Brien were talking, and Bashir mentioned something about darts, and Chief says, oh, how can you think about that at a time like this, or something to that effect. But Bashir's line, the one that I'm trying to find that I really liked, what he said something to the effect of, oh, I think things will turn out just fine, or he said, something like that, which is funny because we know what he means. He means for him, for the Dominion. He's like, oh, don't worry. I think the good guys will win. I'm feeling pretty confident.
Yes. And that's what I meant about the audience knowing, because it's fun to watch those kind of exchanges when you see the character and you're like, deep down, it's not the real guy and you're being fooled.
Right.
It's like one of those moments when you're yelling at the TV, like, don't do it. Don't trust him. He's not the guy. He's lying. But there were so many lines. I mean, once again, I got to give credit to Ira Bear, Robert Wolf.
Right.
The dialogue is so good. They use these words and these phrases that just like encapsulate who the character is and the feelings of the moment. And one of those lines where Garrick, for example, they were like, well, there's only, who else is gonna fix the transmitter and crawl in the panel? There's nobody else who knows how to do it. You're the man of, jack of all trades. I'm sure you know how to do it. And Garrick's line was so classic. He's like, it's nice to feel needed.
Yeah. Yeah. And then they gave him they had to up the stakes again, as Star Trek does so well. So they're like, okay, claustrophobia. Give him, some kind of additional struggle or hurdle. And Martok says the line, a man's own inner fear or whatever is the biggest struggle. Man, I need to find out where I put my notes.
Yeah, Martok says there is no greater enemy than one's own fear.
Yes, thank you.
That's again another line where you're just like, wow, these lines are classic because they're like proverbs. They're like Confucius statements, some of them, right? There's no greater enemy than one's own fear, and that's true as far as my experience is concerned. It's the biggest thing.
And actually that line, I did find it in my notes, and right below it is the line that I was looking for with Bashir. He says, life must go on. Besides, I have a feeling things will turn out for the best. that was the line I was trying to remember.
Yeah, for him.
But yeah, so back to the point though. Yeah, I mean, like so many people, especially people with, mental health, issues or situations there, they'll tell you a million times they'd rather have a broken arm, or they'd rather get, punched in the jaw, or they'd rather deal with pain than the inner turmoil of, somebody that has powerful OCD or PTSD or, anything like that, or claustrophobia. Yeah. This feeling of impending doom where it's just like so much more powerful and so much, you feel so much more helpless, it seems, than, just physical pain. Because the physical pain you can heal and you can overcome it. But yeah, that was interesting to come from a Klingon of all places.
I have to say that the claustrophobia I thought was a great touch. Mm-hmm. It elevated the stakes so much more. It put the pressure on Garrick a lot more, and the scenes, the way they were written, these like monologues where he's talking to himself, like, get a hold of yourself, Garrick. It's this is not like the time that you were at this prison camp or whatever. This is different, and don't forget you promised Zial, and da, 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 and like all these like. And then he says,
Tane.
Is Tane. He was like, Tane, I wish you were here so you could be here instead of me. Like, I mean, just the whole, those are the conversations you have with yourself in those kinds of moments, right? Where you're like, if you're trying to fight your fears, those thoughts are going through your head. Okay, it's all right. It's going to be fine. You'll get rescued. Help is coming soon. Just stay calm, or whatever it is when you're in a crisis moment like that. You go through this process of, then you start making deals with God, like, God, if you just get me out of this, I promise I will,
fill in
whatever
the blank.
else.
Yeah.
Anything, whatever. You fill in the blank. I promise I'll stop. I'll be good. I'll do, I'll donate money. I'll do this. I'll make up for it. But just, you start making these deals and you start going through the psychology in your head. And like you said, they dealt with this claustrophobia issue so well. I thought was just perfect, because that's kind of the way the phobia consumes you, right? And facing your fears was a big element of this thing. I wrote down amazing scene. I didn't even write the dialogue down, but I was so caught up in it. I was just like, this is so good. I like the tightness of the shot, with the way the light was just minimal, and it had those like really like those 3 LED probe light things, or 4 strands. I liked the way the lighting was. I liked the way it felt like he was trapped or in a very confined space. And I bought it. It seemed 100% believable to me.
Yeah. Let's talk about this a little bit more on the other side of the break. We do have to jump into that break very quickly. But everybody at home, we're going to come right back on the other side of this break and talk more about this. Boy, this segment went by fast. We'll be right back on The Seventh Rule. Hey, friends. Welcome back to The Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello, hello.
My name is Ryan T. Husk, and it's time for the Trivioids. This is what we do to start the second segment of every episode. By the way, thanks for joining us. We hope you're having as much fun as we are. This is really one of the coolest things in the world, to be able to watch Star Trek episodes and talk about it and have people join us and watch it with us. And I mean, especially for me, I get to talk with Cirroc Lofton. I mean, what a deal. So, I mean, let's be honest. It's a lot of fun.
It's a lot of fun for me too, actually. I'm getting to know everybody, and the stories are like so awesome that they've got me hooked. I see why it's regarded so highly.
I think the best part of this for everybody involved is that everybody's going, we get to watch Cirroc Lofton watching Star Trek for the first time. And one of the biggest comments I keep seeing, by the way, is people saying, he's one of us now. He's becoming one of us. He's a Star Trek fan now. He's a fan like us. It's just the coolest thing. I love it. So
I'm on my way. I'm not fully there yet. I don't have the whole memory, the whole memory of the whole world and the universe. So I don't know all of it. I'm getting there. It's really growing on me, and I see why it's special, because you start to care about these characters and the situations they're in to this like degree. But go ahead, get the trivioids in.
All right, here we go. Garak has acute claustrophobia. Deep Space Nine puts its runabouts to good use, which we mentioned. Bashir says his tool is either a self-sealing stem bolt or a reverse ratcheting router. General Martok does his best Duke Evers impression. By the way, that is, I don't know if you recognize that reference. Duke Evers was the character in Rocky that says, throw in the damn towel. Yeah, okay. Remember that guy? Okay, coolest line ever in 80s movies. Yeah. Throw in the damn towel. And that's what Martok was doing. He's like, Worf, stay down.
Yes, so I love it too. Your honor has been fulfilled, or something like
satisfied. That. Yes, that was so perfect. That was, we'll definitely get into that. Yeah. That was good stuff. Romulans have been saying, Romulans have a saying, never turn your back on a Breen. Faker Bashir wants to destroy the sun. The Defiant wants to destroy the Yukon with Faker Bashir in it. And Gul Dukat is very proud of the monument his people are erecting in his honor at the gateway to the Imperial Plaza.
Yes.
By the way, did you notice that Romulan lady that said never turn your back on a Breen, she came back with them? So interesting. Maybe they have a bonus character.
No, I did notice that. And at the same time that I noticed that, I also noticed that the Jem'Hadar that got shot did not get beamed back in.
Right.
Right? So I was expecting a
nuts to you, buddy.
I was expecting a dead or dying Jem'Hadar to get beamed aboard the station and just kind of fall and flop to the floor, but he didn't make it.
I actually rewound that moment 3 times because there was a lot that happened in just 5 quick seconds. You know, Garak goes, I got it, and they did this, and then you watch and you see Worf gets beamed and Martok gets beamed at the same time as 2 shots are being sent to Worf and the Jem'Hadar. It was just all beautifully done, and I just want to watch it a few times to get it all.
They staggered it by a half a second to basically validate why the Jem'Hadar didn't get beamed, because essentially he got shot a half a second or 1 second before the other bullets were headed for Worf and Martok. But that was a cold-blooded scene when he's like, kill them both. The Vorta, he's like, you know what? I'm done watching.
I don't care.
Yeah. I don't care. And by the fact that you're not obeying my orders when I tell you to kill him, right? And you're telling me you have your own opinion on stuff. Like, this is not the place for your own opinion.
Yeah, it's like Jem'Hadar to be seen, not heard. That's what he's thinking right now.
Basically. So I love that. I loved it.
Well, let's finish on the claustrophobia thing real quick as well, because I was thinking when I saw that moment that an actor like Andy Robinson, who we've had the pleasure of having on the show, great guy, takes his craft very seriously and seems to love the character of Garrick. I bet you when he read that extra element that adds extra depth to the character of Garrick, I bet he was super excited. I bet you he liked that. He's like, yes, give him more obstacles, give him more depth, give him more, just things demons that he has to fight against. And he probably relished it, and he did a great job with it. And as you mentioned, they set up the lighting well and the close quarters well.
It felt really confined. I felt the claustrophobic, the claustrophobia that he was feeling. And once again, just these, Andy Robinson was just a fantastic actor and really amazingly capable. He does really wonders for me with this episode and those scenes. He takes his scenes and he makes them so, they become integral parts of the whole thing. It's not like a throwaway. All his scenes are like, you're sitting there, you're watching what he's saying, and it's kind of Shakespearean the way he talks, right? He has this kind of way that's so elaborate and articulate, and it's poetic in a certain type of way. And I love that about him. I think that he does Garrick so much justice in this episode. And I wrote down here that, Garrick is an honorable man. That's essentially what I've come to. How we're on the fence about Ducat, and we're like, I don't know, Ducat, sometimes I like him, sometimes I hate him. And Garrick has a little bit of that about him, but more leaning towards the like, right?
Right. Ducat leans more towards the bad and Garrick leans more towards the good, but they're both multifaceted with darkness in light and light in dark.
Right. And so I just love the way Garrick plays that. I like the way he has morals and he has honor and integrity. He really risked himself. And it was actually a funny moment in this episode where everybody thought he was asleep over there resting, recovering from his claustrophobia. Yeah. And he comes up out of bed like, no, that won't be necessary. I got it.
Back to work.
I know it's all hinging on me, so I'm going to save the day. Honorable thing to do. That's brave of him to face his fears, like they said. And this is a really courageous episode, in my opinion, of him. Also of Worf. We didn't really talk much about Worf, but what a warrior he is. To not back down. And that moment where he was getting beat by the Jem'Hadar and he was like crawling back up, like, nope, I don't surrender. I'm not giving up. Still coming back up. I thought that showed it showed a side of Worf, like he is committed and he's not a punk. He's got heart.
Worf was less interested in defeating them in battle and more interested in defeating them mentally, in showing them, and like that was the line. The Jem'Hadar says, "That's enough, Klingon." And Martok even says, "That's enough, Worf." And Worf says, "I will not yield." And even Martok, like you mentioned before, he says, "Worf, honor has been satisfied. Stay down."
Stay down.
What we come to find out is Worf isn't necessarily fighting to win. He's not necessarily fighting for honor. He's fighting to not let them beat him as a person, to show, and so he says, "I will not yield." And that's when the aha moment snaps in the Jem'Hadar, and he says, "Then I yield." Perfect.
It was perfect. And the crush that Martok has on Worf afterwards is so amazing. 5 matches, 5 victories,
Yeah. He's like, "My boy Worf." All right. He's like rubbing his shoulders. Yeah. He's like, "Can I get you some water? Keep up the good work.
I'll make sure that I'll find what's his name and make him write a poem about shit, and you're gonna be legendary. You're gonna be the Muhammad Ali of the Klingon Empire. So don't worry. And I love that the bond that Martok and Worf kind of shared in this episode as well. It was Worf proved himself. For a guy that was outcast and had his family name disgraced, he has done so much to redeem himself that if I don't see Worf and his family name restored by the end of this series, I'm going to be very pissed.
You'll be a very unhappy man. But just to bring it back a little bit, Martok's new last name is Evers. General Martok Evers. Throw in the damn towel.
Yeah, Martok was like, dude, you got to give up, man.
You're gonna die. Yeah, he was totally in his corner. I loved it. It was like a boxing match, and he was like his guy in his corner, man, his trainer or whatever. That was so cool.
I felt the same way. I also like they used this graphic before in the other episode and the one before this, but it was the graphic of the asteroid floating, the prison colony that they're on. I just wanted to highlight that I kind of like that graphic, and I like the way that looks. It looks so cool to see an asteroid floating around with a prison colony on it. Great idea for the art department or visual effects guys to put that together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it looked great.
Also, like we talked about the runabouts, there was a moment where they showed a close-up on the runabout being deployed, coming out of the hatch, and I love that special effect as well. It was like, oh, here we go, and then
Cirroc,
it's a little.
You're slowly turning into one of those ship nerds. There are a lot of people floating around in the sci-fi that they're just like obsessed with nerds. They're like, "What's your favorite Enterprise?" Mine is the Enterprise F that was in episode whatever, or they say, "Oh, the B is the best," or they say, "What class of ship do you like?" And they're like, "The Prometheus class." No way, the Constitution. And Cirroc's like, "I'm listening."
I'm listening. Yeah, I'll tell you in a minute after I weigh out the options.
Yeah, but it's true. I mean, some of that stuff, it makes you appreciate it. You know what I mean? Like when you see these things in detail, or you see them in action, you see close-ups, it makes you really appreciate the thought that was put into it, and the people that behind this artistry really deserve kudos, because, they put so much time and effort and thought and creativity and skill into creating these things that can be believable, that we look at and be like, wow, that's a really interesting ship, and I understand what it does and how it works. And anyway, so I get it. I definitely get it. I was teasing a little bit, but I totally get it.
Yeah, those moments are great. I mean, we talked about last episode the undercarriage of the Defiant and watching it kind of fly over, and that moment, I know it sounds silly, but it was like, oh wow, that's cool. I haven't seen the Defiant from that angle before. So yeah, seeing, for example, the station opening up its releasing dock so that this runabout can go is kind of fun to watch these things in motion. And I think they even started this episode with a little bit of that ship porn talk that we were talking about. Like this episode started with like release to this and docking, thrusters on half. They started with the same thing that we highlighted in the previous episode. So I was like, oh, they gave us just this little sample of it as well in this one.
Yeah, and I think I don't know why this popped in my head, but I think this is the second episode in a row. Both of these episodes didn't even have like a Trekian name, like, the Alvanian beetle, or they're like, there's too much stuff in here, guys. You're just gonna have to go. You're just gonna have to go 2 weeks without your weird Trekian name stuff. But there wasn't any of that, because they're filling it up with things like that, like what you mentioned. And it was an interesting episode because there was so much jam-packed in there. Sometimes we see that there's so much jam-packed, it feels like it should be 2 episodes. Well, this was 2 episodes, and they still jam-packed it, but it worked. Everything worked, And I feel like there was something more I wanted to say about the ships, but I don't remember it now. But I guess we covered enough.
Well, no, I was going to add to it. I was going to add Galron because we didn't talk much about Galron, but he had a very good scene where Sisko is kind of bringing up this treaty that he had.
Yeah.
And he hands him back and says, "Oh, that treaty is dead. Hasn't been valid in, who knows how long." And Sisko's like, "Well, you might want to reconsider making the deal with us right now."
And he made good points too. Yeah.
He made great points. He was like, "You want to defend from here, or do you want to defend from your home planet? Your odds are better right here." So I loved all of those scenes. There were so many dynamics with the Galron, Sisko, with the two Bashirs, right? Bashir doing double duty, right?
Yeah.
And just like everything, there was enough to keep me going. The Worf storyline was great. He showed his courage. He showed that he wasn't going to get broken. He showed that he's a tough fighter. Martok was there to witness it and cheer him on and give him the encouragement. The Jem'Hadar seemed to have taken a step, in my opinion. At least that one Jem'Hadar did by making a decision on his own.
But he got killed for it.
He got killed for it, but the other Jem'Hadar were watching, right?
Yes.
And I know it means something. I know it's just one person getting killed, but it matters when you see one guy speaking up and he's telling the truth. And if it resonates with you, and you're like, yeah, why the hell, I don't have a problem with these people. I don't know, why am I beating on them and killing them? That doesn't serve my interest, I think is what he said, something to that effect.
Right. I'm no longer interested in whatever it was. Yeah.
Yeah. So there were so many aspects of this with the panic attack, with Dukat telling Sisko to surrender the station. I started laughing at that moment, even though it was very serious. I was like, damn well Sisko is not going to just hand you the keys and say, "Oh yeah, here you go. You want me to leave? Is there anybody you want me? Would you like Odo to stay behind?"
Yeah, we'll leave you some nice warm muffins. We'll bake them fresh for you on our way out.
Yeah, you knew that wasn't going to happen. So that was like a joke to me. Quark had a very small scene in this episode when he was just kind of like pining over the fact that he wasn't going to make any money once the Jem'Hadar and the Founders get there because they don't eat, drink, or have sex.
Yeah, but then he's like, "Oh, my business is going to die," because that is his whole business: eat, drink, and sex, and weapons, and sex. I guess,
and weapons and changelings and whatever else you can find on the black market.
And then Garrick and Worf had a nice mutual respect moment, because remember the previous episode, Worf was going to bring Garrick back in his mouth like a cat brings a dead bird and drop it on Sisko's. He was going to be like, "Blip, there you go. I brought him. Here's a gift for you." But then Worf says to Garrick, he says, "Garrick, you did well." And Garrick says, "So did you." And you're like, "Aw, these guys, see, you guys don't hate each other that much." Mutual respect there.
Yeah, well, there's an old saying that nothing brings people together like a common enemy, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And this is a perfect example of that. I thought it was funny when Garrick thought he was about to leave, because they're like, "All Cardassians, please take forward, you're part of the Dominion now, so you're free to go." And Garrick looks back at Bashir like, "Is it cool if I roll out on you?"
Yeah, and that actually made it more believable that it was actually going to happen, because they added that look that made it seem like, is that, and Bashir's like, "Yeah, dude, get the fuck out of here.
Get out of here and get help. Like, we need help."
And Garrick's like thinking like, oh yeah, get help. That's totally why I'm leaving right now. Yeah, that's what it is. That's the plan. If I'm not here by tomorrow with help, just wait till the next day. I'll
Don't worry, I'll remember. No, but that was funny, because there was a moment when oh gosh, I'm losing track of the name. Not the Jem'Hadar, and not
The
the
Vorta?
founders. When the Vorta was telling him, like, okay, everybody leave, and he's like, not you. And you see Garrett like, what? Last time I checked, I was a Cardassian, and the line was very good. I thought his name was Deos, the Vorta.
Oh, I didn't.
Deos.
He's a Deus. Oh man, remember when that was like the song, like in what was something like 1989 or something like that?
Deus, yeah.
He's a day, he's a day, he's a day.
I couldn't stop thinking about it. I had to write that. I was like, no,
That's so
I can't
funny.
let that go. So the Vorta Deos went in response to Garrick saying, last time I checked, I was a Cardassian. Deos says, yes, but not a very popular one.
There it is.
It was such a good line.
Deos, that's actually his last name. His first name is Gracias. Gracias a Deus. Hey, our Hispanic friends out there, you guys got me on this one. They're laughing. They're right now. They're going, "Ay, wait."
I'm separating myself from that joke.
That was a solid joke. That was a good joke.
There's no cosign here on this department.
Okay. We'll have to. Yeah, we'll see in the live chat. Those of you who speak Spanish, or understand it, let us know how good, or actually don't. You guys are gonna tear me up.
No,
never mind.
Please don't. Yeah, guess the IMDb of Ryan's jokes.
Oh, yeah, there should be a joke rating, like a 1 to 10 wows. Like 10 is the worst. When it's 10 wows, it's bad.
Guess the rating. How are Ryan's jokes going to be this episode? Put it in the description.
Yeah, we've got a few defenders. There are a few people out there that say the jokes are funny, but for the most part, they're just like
they're shaking their head.
Whatever, they love it.
But no, and other moment too at the end where Sisko's like, I get to pick who the commander is, right? I get to pick who's going to be representing the Klingons. Right. And he picks Martok, which I thought was just like a perfect move. It was like, oh, this episode really came together like a nice little bow. And how devious is Dukat? He's back on my shit list. He gets no Christmas presents and he's here. Just like he sacrificed his daughter, he set the station up. He wants to blow up a sun and turn into a supernova. Like, you're basically gonna kill millions of people. Essentially, you're gonna wipe out millions of people. And he didn't seem to even really think much about it. Like, oh yeah, well, you got me.
So, Cirroc, you saying that he's not getting any Christmas presents. Is that like the seventh rule version of not invited to the cookout?
Exactly. He's not invited to the cookout.
He was in for a second. You were kind of putting him on the list, but now
he was in with Zial because there was moments where I thought, oh, this guy's not so bad. He's doing good by his daughter. He's like, he's trying, and he had a kind of an understanding with Kira, like you keep an eye on her. And, there was kind of a thing where there was a moment where I was like, oh, this guy's not so bad. He's trying to do the right thing. He basically got disowned by his own family for claiming Zial at all. Right. So he did take some risk by doing that. So I was starting to root for him a little bit. But now I'm like, oh, you're just a two-faced backstabber, man.
He's just gonna kill his own daughter. Yeah, like, well, sorry. Casualties of war.
Too bad for you. Yeah. So I just think like I've lost all my respect for Dukat, whatever little bit was left, and now he's I feel like Kira. She's like she had her arms crossed at the end, and she's like, I just want to kill him. Like it was like I can't wait to get him.
She gonna get him.
Oh yeah, she's not gonna forget because he basically tried to wipe Bajor off the map.
Yeah.
That's
it. Speaking of which, it's time.
Nitpick alert. Alert.
It's time for the nitpick, everybody. Damn it. Damn it all. When Garrick is in the wall with only 3 LED lights out there, they should have the lights aimed at the work he's trying to do, not aimed at his own face. That's going to not only make it harder for him to work, but it's stressing. He's already stressing out, and he's got the things face your work. Poor guy. He's just stressing himself out.
Hey, face your work. Yeah. It's funny because, there was that scene when the Jemadar come in and they're looking for Garrick, right? And he's hiding in the wall. And Bashir's like, I don't know where he is, right? And that's when he brings the stem bolt, the self-sealing stem bolts, and the reverse ratcheting router up.
Yeah.
But in that scene, the Jemadar points his gun and shoots some guy that I didn't even remember seeing. Yeah. I was like, who is that guy? I had to rewind it. I was like, did I see him before? Like, did he just come to get shot? Because I don't remember this guy.
He was just some guy that they're like, we got to kill somebody, but the Breen's doing something. We want to bring him. Yeah, kill this guy. I
rewound. I was like, wow, they killed the Breen pretty fast. And then I rewound it. I was like, that's not the Breen. That's some random guy.
Romulan number 2.
So it's funny. It's like, she's next. And I'm like, well, you didn't really upset. Bashir's line should have been like, who was that? That would have been the classic line if Bashir, after he shoots him and says, she's next, if he looked at him and said, who was that?
You know what? I just realized something, but we've got to hop over into the free-for-all. So I'll save it. But it did make me think of that. Real quick, Jake Sisko guesses the IMDb score.
Another good one. I'm going to say it was on par with the last one. So 9. I'm going to go for a 9.
Yep. Same as the last one. 8.9. Same exact thing. Real quick, we also want to give a very special thank you to Carmen, a.k.a. Skillet, PJ Tomas, TJ Jackson-Bey out in Missouri with Jeffrey. Bill Victor Arucan. Yvette Blackmon, Homer Frizzell, I already said Yvette Blackmon, Eve England out in Wales, Dr. Anne-Marie Segal, Dr. Susan B. Gruner, Dr. Mohamed Noor, Tim Baum, Titus Mohler, John Mann, and Mark Roco. We'll see you on the other side on the free-for-all. Always remember the 7th rule. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the free-for-all. We are joined by Eve England out in Wales, Mohamed Noor, doctor. I guess I should say Mohamed Noor, PhD, and Marie Segal, PhD, Mr. Titus. It's so confusing for those of us that don't know anything. Titus Mohler, Homer Frizzell, and of course, the party gorn, TJ Jackson-Bey out in Missouri with Jeffrey somewhere. And Homer,
that thing's scary looking, boy. That thing's...
Homer's got the picture. That was TJ out in the animated series with Jeffrey, his llama.
That's so funny.
All
I
right.
like how if you look at the people in the background, they're like looking over at the Gorn mad. The lady in the red, she's like upset, like, how dare him bring a llama to the party?
Yeah, because he only bought one ticket.
He gets a drink.
He bought one ticket.
The lady in the blue behind that Homer is kind of blocking, she's also looking like, how dare him?
Hands on her hips.
This isn't a zoo. What are you doing?
I can't see.
Oh my gosh.
That's funny.
Okay.
What were you saying, TJ?
Yeah, please.
What I'm really doing is checking out the froed out Klingon that's standing right in front of us.
He's like, "What's up, sister?"
That's right.
And Jeffrey's checking out Homer.
That thirst trap.
Yeah, the thirst trap.
Are we almost out of time?
Not yet.
Only like 25 more minutes of this. So, first things first. Oh, okay. Titus had a question to Cirroc about the directors, but before we get to that, real quick, guys, we didn't mention the NAMs, the non-appearance mentions. Do any of you know what the non-appearance mentions are in this episode? I counted 4.
Yeah, that's what I had. Yeah.
Okay, Eve,
Nice.
let's hear them, because I think
One of them is a bit of a what I wasn't sure if one would count. So I had so I had Molly and Keiko, Odo and Tane.
Oh,
no,
I
is it
didn't.
in this
Oh, maybe I missed one.
I didn't catch Odo.
Yeah, they were talking about Odo when they were talking about what was it when they were talking about this? It was when they were on the in ops. They would just mention that Odo had to go and do something. I can't remember what it was.
Yeah, and he wasn't in this episode, huh?
No, because I kept watching it. I think, oh, maybe he comes back later, and I was like, oh, don't know. I even got James to help me.
Oh, now
Wow,
I'm very
good one.
intrigued.
Good one. My 4th was actually Kirayoshi because he said Keiko and the kids,
Yes.
plural. But Tane was the one that I didn't think people would get because he was in the previous episode, and he was also in when they said previously on Star Trek Deep Space Nine, but he wasn't actually technically in this episode. Good one. Very good.
Good knowledge.
Wow. Excellent knowledge.
Excellent knowledge.
Ryan gave out like his first excellent knowledge this week.
Okay. Do you guys want to know a secret real quick? Everything I say, I'm just referencing someone else. Well, when I say good knowledge, I'm actually referencing the great Gary Radnich of 680 AM radio, sports talk radio in the Bay Area. And he was just the sports talk radio guy that I listened to for like 20 years. And when people would call in and say stuff, if they would say something, usually he would get like into pop culture. Like when somebody would reference like a really cool Whitney Houston song or something like that, he'd say, good knowledge. Or he'd say, excellent knowledge. So that's all I'm doing. I'm just copying him and referencing him in homage because, he's been talking sports, Bay Area sports for those of us who like Bay Area sports for decades. Anyway, sorry, nothing original here.
When you pay homage to where you get stuff from, then it's no longer plagiarizing.
Excellent knowledge, Cirroc. So, Titus, you got a question?
Yeah, I just among the notes I took because I was watching the episode just a little bit ago. I really liked Avery's delivery in this episode. Some of the lines, I just thought he put something extra special on them. Like when you have the super serious Gowron, saying "May the tides." I forget his whole line.
Oh yeah,
but I love Avery. Oh, you got it, Cirroc?
Yeah, he says, think of it. 5 years ago, no one ever heard of Bajor or DS9. All our hopes rest here where the tides of fortune can take us, no man can know. I thought that was really like poetic as well. They write these really big Shakespearean type of lines that are so big and they're like meant for a stage almost. It's like, I love the way the writing is in these episodes.
And I just love Avery's comeback to that was kind of, he added some levity, but he just said they're tricky. Those times. And then also later on when he was talking to Ducat, I think, or no, it was when Kira said, Klingons helping us guard the station. What an interesting concept. And Sisko was like, these are interesting times. I don't know. I wondered if he had a good relationship with Les Landau, the director, and or if that was just maybe Avery just completely calling audibles that were really good.
I don't know his relationship with Les. That's kind of outside of my knowledge right there, but he does do different things in his delivery, and it's part of a long-standing trademark of his own style of acting. So if you go back and you watch some of the Spencer for Hire or A Man Called Hawk episodes, there were certain things he would say or do that were different than anybody I've ever seen. Spencer would ask him a question like, "Hey, Hawk, are you going to be there?" And most people would say, yes or no, but he would say affirmative, right? And he would say negative or negativo, and and you're like, wow, negativo. Like I never even, that's never heard nobody answer like that. And he would also do these smiles in awkward places and quick smiles. Like he would do one of these like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's funny, but not really funny. and and so he's got a bunch of like small little mannerisms and things that I feel like are unique to him and his performances. And I think that's expressed in his the way he chooses to say words and which words he emphasizes or how he delivers the lines. Those are all just signature Avery. But he does that even in his communication. When you listen to him talk, he has this very eloquent delivery that's real poetic and sounds almost musical. So it's kind of who he is as a person too.
Interesting.
Okay, awesome.
Anybody else have any thoughts on this here episode or the two-parter itself? Eve, out in Wales over here, was giving us a lot of cool information from the DS9 companion. Were there any other cool tidbits? Oh, by the way, check out this awesome shirt that Eve England is wearing. I'm going to spotlight you. Here it comes. Ta-da. And it says athletic department, racquetball, batleth, and darts. Brilliant.
Cirroc Noor under new management.
Yes.
Under.
All right, real quick, other shirts. This is walking art made by Melissa.com.
Nice.
This is Engage number 5. And
Nice.
I see Mohamed is also wearing, very quickly, something from Walking Art made by Melissa, the chat pack.
Yeah.
You can find that in the description
Cute.
box below. And it looks like Homer is definitely wearing an Abyssinian kiosk creation.
It is not Abyssinian.
No, I
Kiosk.
think that's
It's
Oh,
shirts
no.
from Lower Decks.
Oh wait, I want
Yeah.
to see.
Yeah, let's see it.
Yeah.
Let's see
So
it.
it's like everything you saw maybe in the first episode. So I
Oh,
think there's
cool.
a spot
There's a
here.
Batleth.
There's a
There's some
Batleth there,
Romulan whiskey.
a bunch of whiskey type stuff. Maybe these are pips. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Nice.
fun.
Contraband.
Okay, so that's also cool. But check out
Contraband.
AbyssinianKiosk.com. That's in the description box below. That's Cirroc's sister that does that one. And Anne-Marie probably is wearing
I
something.
always wear Ferengi eyes because I have like 5 of them. Plus a few Captain Nog
Bring
forever.
guys.
But I love Ferengi eyes
Nice.
from the Teespring store.
And that's at teespring.com/the seventh rule. Check it out. Everything that you see here is in the description box below, except for, of Eve England's and Homer's surprise Lower Decks shirt.
My
Okay.
apologies, Ryan. I didn't mean to take you by surprise.
Not at
The
all.
good thing about the Ferengi Eyes one, and I don't know if it's the same with the one that you have there, Anne-Marie, but you have the 7th rule on the back.
Yeah. Especially if it's Ferengi eyes cool, because then the 7th rule shows up in purple on the sweatshirts at least,
Yeah.
which is really fun.
Can you
Oh,
show us the back, Anne-Marie?
Let me see. I don't know if you can see it. Also,
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
not.
there it
Yeah,
is,
this
yeah.
is the cool one. I was like, I'm not sure which one
Yeah.
I'm wearing today.
All right. So everybody that's
Purple.
just listening and not watching is like, I don't know what's happening. So sorry, Eve, did you have anything to add from the companion?
Yeah, no, they were just because apparently there was some criticism as to Guldercat's rise to power and how quick that was. But I think the writers sort of said that what they were trying to do is just trying to make references to Hitler's rise to power, for example, and how you get these horrendous leaders from desperate situations. Descartes was in dire straits. He was being fought from all sides and was losing. So he sort of took the decisions he did because he was desperate, and we all know where that leads to. And this is a separate point, but when Descartes at the end says he wants to make Cardassius strong again, it just reminded me of that Twitter account. I don't know if anyone saw it. Was it the real Guldercat?
Real
Real
Descartes, yes.
Yeah.
They took
Real
the
Descartes.
Trump tweets and changed them to be restyled as if they were Ducats, and as soon as because I'd totally forgotten about that, and it just cracked me up when I did that. I was like, that's brilliant.
That account was brilliant. I
Marie
loved
has
it.
like that.
It's
that
still
hat
up, right?
That says like make Kardashian great again.
I'm not sure. It's sort of. I don't think they've done anything obviously since but it's still, you can still find them. Yeah, because I looked them up afterwards, and it's hilarious.
I think wasn't Hillary Clinton Kai Wynn in that or something like that too. They translate everybody in there.
And I think they had the phage was COVID, and it was
funny.
Genius. Yeah.
That's my favorite. One of my favorite comments is when somebody does a post in a Star Trek group that's not very good. Somebody will post a picture of the phage and it says, "This post was so bad it gave me the phage." I don't know why that makes me laugh so hard, but
I don't either.
It's funny as hell.
I gotta look up the phage. Is that with a PH or a F?
PH. It's first season Voyager, I believe. It's like this disease that just melts their face or whatever. The Vidians.
And the Vidians, yeah.
Oh my
Okay.
God, there's one tweet that says defund the Department of Temporal Investigation.
Yeah,
So that's new, right? That's relatively new.
They've been tweeting this week.
Okay, cool.
Which is the account?
Yeah, somebody said who shot Amin Maritza. Or that's one of them. There's a lot of conspiracy theorizing going.
Isn't that was in Trials and Tribulations, right?
Yeah, we just saw them.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's at Real Gold Ducat. Totally amazing follow.
At Real Gold Ducat.
Uh-huh.
Got it.
Yeah, look at that.
All right. Any other thoughts on this episode?
I like, I mean, this is something that's not exclusive to this episode, but I like the tension between the Vorta and the Jem'Hadar. And it's something that's come up a couple of times in there, but it's really interesting that they're on the same side, but they really don't like each other at all. And that respect that I can't remember his name, but the Jem'Hadar guy who didn't want to kill Worf, the respect he had for him. And it seemed kind of mutual in a way, even though they were enemies. So this idea of honor, that they really get it. Whereas the Vorta are like, what the heck, kill him, you know? That was interesting.
Yeah, that's one thing I noted. I really liked. I felt it in previous episodes, but I felt it again in this one. I kind of like the Jem'Hadar. You know, I mean, they're definitely the antagonistic group and stuff. They're the tip of the spear, but I felt like you got the sense that they have some honor. They kind of get the Klingons a little bit. And so, yeah, that was one of my favorite things about the episode was the respect that Jem'Hadar showed for Worf and the Klingons.
Right. Well, the Jem'Hadar are not enemies of the Federation by will. They don't hate. They're just born and bred and created to be these fighters and to be these enemies and to be these marauders. So every once in a while, they exert some free will and some free thought. And then what happened to him? Vorta goes, all right, kill this one. He got red pilled. Kill him. he snapped out of it. He's no longer of use to us.
So given the Jem'Hadar have to follow the founder, so that's hardwired into them. But it's interesting they didn't hardwire in that they have to follow the Vorta. Right. So I wonder if the founders did that on purpose in case they ever decide, we're kind of done with the Vorta. they don't have a situation where the Jem'Hadar are then defending the Vorta.
Yeah, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
It's just nice to see the Klingons held up as an example of like something that they could aspire to if they weren't being oppressed, which is something you don't see Klingons depicted as very often. I love the way that Deep Space Nine always spins your view of things. Sorry, Cirroc.
No, you're right. I was just going to add that the first time we saw the Jem'Hadar, they were really anxious to test their battle and their fighting skills against the Klingon, right? So that was kind of a theme that was introduced to us many episodes ago. And so I think they have this real respect for the Klingons because they are such a fighting race of people that they are like, that's like us, we like fighting and we see honor and integrity in fighting, and we define ourselves by our over masculinity type of behavior. So I think they kind of see themselves as like the same in some type of way. Jem'Hadar sees themselves in the Klingons.
Yeah,
even their quotes are very similar. The "Today is a good day to die. Victory is life." I mean, they're almost like yin and yang. Yeah,
short and to the point.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a real connection that they have in that kind of a way.
Speaking of which, today is a good day to like.
Oh,
so be sure,
that's good.
So be sure to like this video and give it 5 stars in the audio cast.
No, this way.
You know, I IMDb score every 7th Rule episode as a 10.
Thank you.
No, literally, thank you, Anne-Marie.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've had to do it like 120 times. My thumb's tired.
So here's a question for everybody. Cirroc brought up a good point about how they kind of handled claustrophobia in this episode, which was really cool. And Andy Robinson surely was excited and happy to have this extra layer to add to his character. So the question for the day today is, what do you think was Star Trek's best handling of mental health in an episode or a character? Because they have tackled the issue, you know, in quite a varied group of ways. And they've had a lot of different episodes, a lot of different characters that tackle it. And it's an important issue. And what do you guys think? I know it's a kind of a toughie because I don't know if they've handled it a ton of times. And there are 1 or 2 obvious answers that I think everybody's thinking. So Mohamed, we'll call on you first because you're about to give the obvious answer.
Do you want me to give the obvious answer? I mean, the obvious answer is
Up
it's
to
a paper moon. I mean, that's clearly the obvious. I was trying to think of something besides
thinking
that.
of that one, but that you're right.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. That was totally the one I assumed. I mean, just in the context of this sort of PTSD aspect, and you know, we've heard that Aaron has referenced that several times. That various soldiers coming back from the front have reached out to him and said, "Wow, that depiction was really on point."
Including many of our patrons here and our associate producers as well.
Yeah,
people like Tim Baum and Rex A. Wood.
That's definitely the best. I was trying to think of a different one, but I guess I'll let other people go.
What do you think, Eve?
Yeah, I mean, that was my first thought, but then I was thinking, actually, I really liked, and I didn't think they explored it as well as they could have, but I liked the way that they dealt with Detmer's trauma in Discovery. I thought that was quite a sort of topical, very real, very raw, the way that they portrayed that, and especially because it wasn't just, you know, a quick reference in one episode. It sort of developed over a couple of episodes. So I really liked how they dealt with that in the context of these awful things that they've had to deal with. I think it lacked is then, you know, they didn't then deal with the collective trauma of the rest of the ship in as much detail as I think they probably could have. They could have really explored that a bit further. But I thought that was really interesting way that they handled that particularly.
Mm-hmm. What do you think, Mr. Homer Freezy out somewhere in New Yeezy?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the easy one. It's going to be Miles O'Brien, and it's going to be after he had that prison term in his mind,
yeah,
and his coming back into real life and trying to keep those two things separate.
Yeah, it's another one.
Yeah, very good one.
That was not the one you were thinking of?
No, but I don't want to say.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
no, don't say it.
No, these are great. These are all excellent. Titus, your thoughts?
Yeah, Hard Time, the one that Homer just referenced. That's what I was thinking of.
Mm-hmm.
Are you now, Ryan? Are you?
Yep, come up with something else.
Are you potentially thinking of another series?
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess I was mostly thinking of Frequency. Everybody's so puzzled, and I thought it was like the obvious one, but I was so wrong.
Wait, I don't know other series titles that well.
Frequency?
Dr. Anne-Marie Segal.
What is Frequency? What episode is Frequency?
Frequency is a word that means like, you know, how many times something.
Yeah, I know. But what episode is that?
Modulation.
That's not an episode. That's how I used it. I'm okay. I'll just tell you guys. I was just thinking of Barkley because frequency.
Oh yeah. I knew you were going to say Barkley.
He had the most episodes that dealt with his anxiety. So when I meant frequency, I meant like the amount of times and the amount of episodes that they touched on the same, kind of
short
anxiety.
circuit my brain by like making up episode titles.
I wasn't trying to.
It does sound like an episode title.
It does.
It does.
It should be.
That's why like my head almost exploded trying to go through 800 episodes.
Conundrum. And Marie, what have you got?
I think it's a really hard question because I can think of dozens of examples, and I really think Star Trek does it better than most shows. And actually, just in this episode alone, like you mentioned, Garak, I thought that was amazing. And I watched a lot of British television and European television, and a lot of them will depict people with flashbacks to like Dunkirk and Ypres and a lot of like World War I battles. And it's so real, like when they're digging tunnels to get out of their barracks if things get bombed. It just, something about it really captured that. But I think my own personal favorite, even though so many always blow my mind, is the one where like B'Elanna gets pregnant to have like Tom Paris's baby, and she's a really hard time struggling with her own identity, and the kid will be, she's only half Klingon, and so then the kid will be only a quarter, and she got made fun of a lot when she was young because of her Klingon side. And I think that's a topic that is never really discussed in popular culture, like the next generation after kids are like from mixed marriages. And it can be really poignant, and sort of, it's still kind of like a taboo thing to talk about, but obviously is very prevalent and always comes up just in like weird minor ways, even just navigating like dating and everything. So I thought they handled it beautifully, and it's beautiful, and such a great Tom Paris moment where he's like, I don't care, I want the child to look just like you. And it's just lovely, and I love Star Trek.
Nice. TJ, I'm sorry, Partygorn?
Partygorn.
Swinging 70s Gorn?
Let's see. I got several things, but I'll go for one that probably no one else will go for. And I want to go back to the original series and talk about the times when Kirk was kind of, questioning himself or feeling the weight of command and all the decisions he has to make. And Dr. McCoy goes in and, kind of cheers him up. I can think of one specifically where, he gives that quote about, how many, planets there are and how much life there is out in the universe. And he says, don't destroy the one named Kirk.
Nice.
So that's my entry.
Excellent.
Don't destroy the one named Kirk.
Also,
do not touch him.
Mohamed has another cool one to mention.
Yeah, there's actually one that's come up a couple of times, which is Picard post-Borg, which is, it'll come up in the episode Family, but then also came up again in First Contact as quite a theme there too. So
that's a great one. Homer?
It's nice. And it's nice when it's not just one episode, because trauma doesn't just get healed in like a day. So it's nice to show that this is something that lasts years and still has effects that bubble up. So
especially like that little support scene with Seven. I loved it.
I don't know if this is exactly the same as what we're talking about, but I'm going to say Garak from The Wire.
Okay.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
He's got that, he's got this thing, and all of a sudden it's going away. So it's like this withdrawal that he has to deal with.
I thought for all of the things that Garak said to Dr. Bashir, for Dr. Bashir to just be able to look past that and still treat him with compassion and understanding was incredibly powerful.
Yeah, Garak was not nice in that episode.
Hey guys, what was that episode where Riker goes like crazy and they're testing him and they're pretending like he's like in a play or
frame of mind?
Yeah.
Oh, frame of mind. Yeah.
That one's insane.
And the one next week's is quite good as well. I mean, I know we haven't got to that yet, but we can pick that up next week in terms of Bashir and his all of that stuff that we find out about him. So no spoilers today, but I think that we can really, I think the mental health and this the family trauma point is probably a really big theme for next week's episode.
Enterprise
So
dealt with
good.
addiction with T'Pol too. I mean, it started in damage
Right.
and then bubbled
Yes.
up a few times after that.
Yeah, I was going to mention T'Pol's addiction and Rafi's
Right.
addiction
Oh,
in
yeah.
Picard
Good knowledge.
as well. Those and even what was it, like first season Next Generation, where they had that game that
Yeah.
was more like
Yeah.
No, that's
more like
later
a
on, but
prediction of what's going to happen nowadays with people just stuck in the front of a
But
screen.
there was an addiction episode in TNG first season where Tasha Yar gives Wesley a drugs are bad speech in a
Yeah,
very 80s
That was
way.
season 2. I just watched that
Oh.
episode actually. The one with the people that were like
No, it must
trading
be the
and
first 10 episodes because it's with Tasha Yar because she's the one who gives
Yeah.
the drugs are bad speech.
you're all
Don't do
right.
drugs,
It must
kid.
have been season 1. Yeah, it was towards the end of season 1.
Wesley's like, why do people do those? It's just a little much, a little 80s. But next week's is such a good medical ethics one too. It's one of my favorites. Can't even wait.
Homer.
Yeah. It was also Dr. Crusher, so I know it was season 1 because it was not Dr. Pulaski.
Right.
So I have a nitpick with the episode.
Uh-oh.
How come?
It's
That's
time
the
for your
timer.
nitpick, Homer.
Yeah. Why don't we get to see the Bashir bucket?
Ooh, that would be cool.
Oh, very
I've always
good.
wondered that. How often do better changelings have to
Sleep
go
in the
into
bucket.
form? If they do, maybe they're still good.
Oh, the Bashir bucket. That's what you
Yeah.
meant. I see.
I was really
Yeah.
waiting though for a T2 moment where when you hear the female voice when he's on the shuttle that he would do something weird with his hands turning into goo. That's why they missed a trick there. That would have been amazing.
They did.
Mm.
Cool.
Oh,
I had
For the
a
changelings,
okay.
What,
the
Titus?
changelings are really smart because they're not going with people that are together because the other person would recognize their partner as a pile of goo
Oh
overnight.
yeah,
So,
they knew
let's do a
Bashir.
lot of
They
research.
knew Bashir's on a
Yeah.
dry spell.
Yeah.
Dry spell. Zip.
Uh,
Sorry, what were you saying, Titus?
Well, one thing I noticed, just
Maybe
keying
they
on
just
your
had a wet
comment there,
dream.
Homer. One thing I noticed is the Dominion. What was that?
Nothing. Let's keep going.
no, you mentioned a puddle in the bucket. I just said maybe they just had a wet dream. That's all I was.
He repeats it.
I know. We could have just moved on.
TJ,
Sorry.
All right.
you thirst trap.
And Dr.
Yeah.
Susan Gruner, I apologize in advance to you two as well.
Sorry, we'll try one more time, Titus.
Come on, Titus.
No, what were you
got
saying,
this.
Titus? Sorry about that.
I had a science question for Mohamed. I figured he might be the best person to ask. I remember reading somewhere that and I don't know the science behind it, but that you would never go to warp in a star system. And of course they do in this episode, but they were giving credit to the writers for at least having the line in there where Dax says in a star system. So I just didn't know if you had spotted that or if you knew why you
I
can't
remember
do
that.
that.
Yeah, I remember it coming
Oh,
up. That's definitely a
I-
Dr. Aaron McDonald question. I'm
Well, I
not a
actually
physicist at all.
read
please.
that it's referencing the Lenora Kahn experiment, but like I don't know the wording from that episode well enough, but it's a direct reference to like that research that was done in that episode,
Very cool.
Yeah, I didn't know that one. Sorry.
which is like I didn't catch. But I do know that like in TNG they would reference like when Beverly had that experiment with all those scientists from different races or different species. So it's like they would reference her work in that episode. So I read that in Deep Space Nine, they're doing it with Lenora Kahn's work, which I thought was awesome to get into that detail.
You know who else knew that? Jeffrey the Party Llama. So we got to go in just a few seconds here. Cirroc, any final thoughts? We kind of went around the table. I don't know if you had any final thoughts on this episode or on the mental health topics that they tackle.
Yeah, I was going to add the my mental health was Kira's mental health and how it's been played out in different episodes. I would bring up Duet as one of them.
Yes.
Kind of goes through that psychology for me.
And like the slow burn of her mental health progression that's like over seasons, and it's just
Exactly.
subtle differences for 120 or whatever episodes. What an
Yeah.
amazing actor and writers. So good.
A+.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
And I wanted to ask him.
no.
Just real quick, I know you're trying to end. I wanted to ask. Cirroc said last episode that this had the makings to be his favorite two-parter in Star Trek.
Oh yeah,
Second
follow
half.
up.
Yes, it did. I think the second episode was just as good as the first one. There were so many little scenes that I enjoyed. I mentioned the fact that I liked the fact that the extended cast and all the Galrons and the Martoks and the Ducats and everybody's kind of kicking in together. We're seeing this real big extended DS9 family. I thought this episode was great as well. Didn't leave me hanging at all. And yeah, I just thought everybody kind of stepped up. Garrick stepped up, Worf stepped up. And then Ducat let me down as usual. So basically everything was good.
Yeah, I love that bit. Like,
Yeah.
of course we should never trust him. He never changes.
I have faith.
Never change.
Oh, but also
The heart.
the Zial Garrick, I just love that. Like how when like friendships and relationships blossom and damage people in like very horrible situations, it's just it shows that there's still beauty.
Yeah, that romance between the 50-year-old and the 15-year-old, totally. So the only in my head,
Cardassian life.
Exactly. In my head canon, I rectified that by saying, you know what, Cardassians just grow up earlier and they become adults at 13. Whatever. Who knows?
It's better than Cass.
Right. Better than Jem'Hadar too. They only live to be like 7.
But
so I guess,
they don't eat, drink,
they
or
don't have fun.
sex.
Yeah. Jem'Hadar and Ocampans. That's a good match. Okay, so we got to run. Everybody at home, thank you all so much for joining us. Anne-Marie, TJ, Mohamed, Eve, Titus, and Homer, thank you for joining us. For everybody here at the 7th Rule, always keep your ears open